this little dialogue we're going to have together. Over to my far right is John Sullivan. John is the director of the prison program at the Islamic Teaching Center, and next to him is Omar Hassan, who is the director of the Department of Student Affairs or Muslim Affairs at the Islamic Teaching Center. And right next to me is Ahmad, director of education. We'll just put it that way. He's got information and publications and publicity and all kinds of things, but we'll leave it at that. It's an interesting thing that we live in a country, I think, that calls itself sophisticated and informed, but yet there are people who live within our boundaries and certainly in the international community who express themselves in relationship to God in many different ways. One of the great movements, religions of the world, is Islam. It's interesting, though, that probably a great percentage of our viewers, and probably not meaning to be that way, but are really ignorant, which is kind of a negative word, but not aware of what Islam is all about, what the Muslims are all about. And when you say that, I don't know, it strikes in some people fear, I think, and I guess it's fear of the unknown. But why don't we just take a few minutes today and kind of discuss Islam at a glance. What is it? What does it try to do? What does it believe in? And what you're doing here in Indianapolis. I might first start with that just basic question. What is Islam and what is a Muslim? Are they both the same or what? Why don't we start with Anis?
I'm glad, Tom, you mentioned about religion as a movement. Actually, I would say that Islam emphasizes the idea of religion as a movement which motivates man in discovering a relationship between himself, his God, his fellow men, as well as the universe around him. That's where we find Islam trying to focus on a universal approach. It tries to tell us what a human being is. In terms of defining Islam, we find the word is drawn from Arabic SLM, which means peace as well as submission to Allah. It's from there both words have been drawn. The word Islam meaning peace and blessings, or meaning obedience to Allah. At the same time, the word Muslim, denoting one who accepts to be peaceful, who accepts to be obedient to Allah. That's how we interpret Islam.
Mm-hmm. The word Mohammedism is really not accepted, is it, as a word that you really use in your community? That is more into trying to place a man as a god. Is that what why you reject that?
Yeah, it places Muhammad in the center of our cosmology or of our belief system, when in fact he isn't. Allah or God is the center of our belief system. And Islam speaks to the relationship that we have with our Lord. We see Allah as one, having no partners, one finality, the truth, and we see ourselves as his servants, all of mankind, all of creation, in all of its diversity, as servants of Allah. So this is the basic, the pristine essence of Islam. In Arabic we say tawheed, and it's really, hard to translate from one language to another, but the most comfortable meaning we can draw from that is the oneness of God. And this is something that we would like people to look at as our focus, and not Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, because he carried this message to us, but he is not, the medium is not the message in this sense.
Speaking of McLuhanesque terms, it may help us at the very outset to try to understand the difference between and the people I know are confused, and we want to get that, the Orthodox Muslim and what is or has been, now that's a growing difference too, the black Muslim. There are two different situations, although, as I understand it, what has been the black Muslim is no longer that, and it's now the Islam in the West or whatever, which is much more orthodox than it's ever been. But help me to understand, or help us to understand the difference as you understand it.
Yeah. Actually, there is no such thing as black Muslims today. The word, as you know, was coined by Lincoln in his book on black Muslims. And from that time onwards...
That's not Abraham Lincoln either.
No.
I know.
Eric Lincoln.
I know. Okay.
And then it became so common that today it has been used in news media a lot. The black Muslim movement, when it was existing in this country, was more or less inspired by certain socio-economic problems in this country. But somehow it used the name black Muslims for itself. That's why confusion took place. Islam does not recognize any race. It does not recognize any classes. It does not recognize any differentiation between man and man on the basis of ethnicity. Therefore, it would be too naive to think that Islam could have any relationship with such a movement which was based on purely economic and social problems. Today, we have a world community of Islam in the West which declares belief in the same book, in the same prophet, and which declares that they are a part of Muslim community at large in world. As such, they are no longer any ethnic group as such. Maybe Brother John can give us some more information about that.
Mm-hmm. John, would you like to? Because I know you work with the prison program, and I know that in many of the prisons, one of the strong movements 10 years ago was the black Muslim movement within the prisons, and now I'm sure that has been dealt with some kind of way, and now you're coming at it, I'm sure, a different way. Would you maybe pick up where we left off?
All right.
Okay.
Many of the letters that I received from the brothers in the institutions are very basic letters asking what is Islam. And the first that they hear of Islam is through the former black Muslim movement. And what we try to do when we first communicate with them is to explain that we do not represent any group of Muslims, that we at the Islamic Teaching Center are trying to give basic information about Islam. Now, from this basic information, they can determine what parts of what they have heard in the past is different than what we is saying is basic Islam. Sometimes there are misinterpretations and things get turned around, but by getting the basic information that we send them, they can determine on their own where the confusion has been in the past. And we explain to them that we want to work with anyone who is interested in learning about Islam.
Mm-hmm. It interests me that also there is a feeling, I think, in the community, and I might be wrong, but I'm going to test it on you, that there is a certain arrogance in the Muslim community about their beliefs, a certain I'm right and you're wrong. And is that true, or how do you accept other religions? Help me to understand that.
Well, from our point of view, all of the prophets of God have spoken to the same religion, that is Islam. Moses, Abraham, Jesus, may Allah be pleased with them all, they were all, in our definition, in our way of looking at the world, they were all Muslims. Now, of course, they didn't teach exactly the same mode of living because they were responding to various environments. But Allah has blessed us with Muhammad, who is the seal of the prophets, and who has given us a system of living and belief that will stand for the remaining time. So we accept all prophets as our brothers, mm-hmm. and as our elders in this sense. But in terms of other religions today, we attempt to approach them with understanding and to try to share an understanding, to exchange concepts. And we think that through this process that we will educate them to the principles of Islam. And they will see two things. One, they will see the simplicity and the consistency. That's the second thing, the simplicity of Islam. And that we don't have a pantheon of gods. We don't have complex concepts like the Trinitarians. And we have a continuity. It runs through all of the messages of the prophets. And we can sometimes illustrate this through their own books. So we call people to Islam on these two basic things. And we don't hold them in contempt. We don't hold any man, when I say man, I mean generically, any human being in contempt. And we think that all of us are born in a state of submission to Allah, to God, and it's a matter of re-education, of educating all of the people to understanding their relationship to their Lord and to each other.
Does it bother you, or does it, how do you, if a person is practicing Christianity, and I mean practicing it purely, not, when I say that, I mean in terms of what may be thought of as you talk about the Quran, a Christian talks about the Bible. Okay? If a person is practicing the Bible, and truth is one, and God is one, does that bother you that that person is not calling themselves a Muslim? Or you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Excuse me. I think the problem is not in believing one God. Problem is in understanding of God. When we talk about oneness of truth, it is not a truth which has different faces, but what is the ultimate truth? Islamically speaking, we believe that truth is eternally one. And that truth was revealed to so many prophets, and through them communicated to mankind. Hebrew prophet, Jesus, may Allah be pleased with him, and Sayyidina Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him. They all
now let me ask you before you keep on the same line, but this is just, I know somebody's wondering why, and why every time you mention a prophet, you will say, may Allah be pleased with him.
That's an Islamic faith, that we have to say blessing on each prophet of Allah, because we believe in all of them. We don't think that Muhammad alone was our prophet. No. If some Muslim believes like that, he won't be a Muslim.
Is that right?
Yes. He has to believe in truthfulness of Jesus, the truthfulness of Moses and Abraham and the whole family of prophets. That's why whenever we say name of any prophet, we have to bless them and request Allah for a blessing. What I was saying was, we believe in oneness of truth, but in eternal truth, which was revealed to all these prophets and which is contained in the Quran. Secondly, it would not be correct to think that Quran and Bible are parallel. Quran is, in our understanding, verbal or spoken word of Allah, verbal revelation. While we find that historically speaking, the books of New Testament contain the history of Christianity from the beginning, life of Jesus, and so many other events in it. Similarly, Old Testament provides us with ample amount of history, while here it is God is speaking to mankind through Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him.
Okay, now I don't want to, because see, we'd waste time in any kind of, but I do want to be clear on that both the Old Testament and the New Testament also do include spoken words of God and Jesus, whether they were passed down or whatever. But I think that just to say that their history would not do justice to the book.
Primarily, that's what I mean. Primarily, Quran is the spoken word of Allah. While in Christianity we have Jesus as the spoken word of God. So if there could be a comparison, it might be between the personality of Jesus as such and the Quran. I'm speaking from the religious point of view, from
hear
a comparative point of view. Islam, as it was just mentioned, emphasizes the idea of looking for unity in mankind. We call every human being to realize that in his nature, initially there is an urge to submit to Allah. Every human being seeks a supreme being, a higher authority, a creator. In our understanding, that supreme authority and creator is Allah.
Now, is a pillar of your faith that caught up in that name? This person says, God, the Lord, Jehovah, Yahweh. What does that? How does that set with you? Is that a problem because the person has not dealt with Allah per se, or is that still? Are we talking about ultimate truth? Okay.
No, it's not a problem in the sense of we know, for example, or we have a feeling for what is trying to be conveyed when people say God. Okay. Sometimes we have to take it a little further and make certain that we have the same understanding. But as Anis was saying, this is the essential problem and the essential difference is understanding of our Lord, okay, and also our relationship to Him. So this is the area in which we begin that initial probe to try and discover in the person whom we may be speaking with what in fact they mean. Because as you know, there are multiplicity of interpretations of godness of Allah, and we would like to clarify that from our point of view and to share. Not just it's not as if we are a stern taskmaster and we're going to teach everybody the right way and ignore their input and ignore their feelings, but we try to establish a relationship and to explain in a very sympathetic and understanding way, our point of view. No, we don't want everybody to step outside of their belief system on an artificial basis, that is, a name, but rather we want them to be comfortable in their belief system, or at least uncomfortable enough in their belief system that they will ask questions, that they will seek to know more. And these are the people who generally accept Islam as, in their adult life, people who are seeking to know more.
Okay. Now, it interests me, too, and I want to get back on this because I think this is a key aspect in terms of the brotherhood of man. I think that the world Muslim community has gotten a bad, particularly in America, some kind of distorted idea that it's for the Muslims are a certain race of people. Okay, I mean, I'm sure you've come across that, and that's not the case. It's represented right here.
Right.
I guess the question I really want to ask is, for instance, in the Christian community, it does not seem to bother white Christians that they have white worship centers, white churches, and there are no Asians, no Afro-Americans, no anybody but just white Christians, and they want it that way. Doesn't bother them, although they worship supposedly a God who teaches them that all men are their brothers. They believe that all men are their brothers somewhere, but they don't practice it. Now, has Islam jumped that hurdle? I'm not talking about in ideology. I'm talking about in practice. Are there mosques or masjid or whatever, masjid? Okay. That are all one race or one situation?
A lot of times, if you're in a particular city, you might find that if you go to an area of the city, a predominance, let's say, of Afro-Americans at a particular masjid, and if you go to another area, there might be a masjid that has a predominance of people who have come to this country from another country. But what happens in that case is usually it's because of the way the cities are divided.
All right, now why I want us to just deal with this just a little bit is because I think it's so terribly important in terms of the authenticity of religion. You see, that's an easy way, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but I want us to go even deeper because that's what is said by everybody. Well, you see, out here where we live, there are none. So our churches would obviously reflect such and such. Now, I want to...
Yeah, may I respond? Yes. First of all, from historic point of view, as you know, Islam made its beginning in Mecca, in Arabia. And first Islamic state was founded around 200 miles from there in Al-Madinah, which was in 13th year of ministry of Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him. But before Islam could reach Medina, it reached Africa in Ethiopia. And directly from Mecca, there were a huge number of people who embraced Islam from Africa. Right when Islam was in Mecca, among his companions were those who were from Persia, from Rome, from Ethiopia, and from all other parts of Arabia. So the universality and the community of brotherhood, which included all kinds of races and colors and languages, was right in the early phases of Islam. Today, in Indianapolis area, we are celebrating our month of Siyam, and we are holding our late night prayers where we stay vigil for a while and recite from the Quran. And if someone visits any of these mosques, he will find someone from Sudan, someone from Persia, someone from America, someone from Pakistan, from different places, just staying together. And sometimes they have to travel 20 miles to come and make their late night prayer. So right in the early history, as well as today, in reality, in practical manner, Islam has shown a medium where all human beings intermingle and rub their shoulders and get together and listen to one and single message which is given by Allah to all of mankind.
Okay. I want to just to ask it even, see if I can even reduce it again, and then I don't want to take too much time because we've got other things to talk about. I guess what I'm really saying is, because I believe this is so crucial, you see, in my religion, the Christian religion, we have a way of dealing with that. We have special days and special prayers. We have Good Friday services and Maundy Thursday services and all of these things. And at those times, you could go to almost any church in the city, and there are all kinds of people there. It's a community event. But I'm talking about the day-to-day practice of the faith. Okay. Briefly, and then I want to ask 3 or 4 more other questions.
Okay. In terms of day-to-day, you know, as Muslims, we demonstrate every day our belief, our commitment to Islam, and our submission to Allah. And it's often translated as prayer, but it's not really. It's really more than prayer. It's more dynamic. It involves our total being. It's called Salah. And in this process, this happens in every mosque, every day, 5 times a day. Okay, so even outside of the month of Ramadan, even outside of, which is the month of Siyam, or the month of fasting that Brother Anis referred to earlier, even outside of this context, every day this is a phenomenon you can view. You see, this is a normalcy in our community. It's not a...
This is what I'm getting at.
It's not an attempt to bridge a gap. It's just a continuing expression. There's never been a gap. There's been a continuity, as he pointed out, from the beginning, and we've maintained it historically. And every year, it's what we call the Hajj. Pilgrims from all over the world come to Mecca in a celebration of and thanksgiving to Allah for giving us.
Okay. But what you said was very important, was that this is a normalcy, day-to-day situation, because you see, at Easter, we also take a pilgrimage to Bethlehem and Jerusalem and all of that. So that's, you know, I'm trying to get beyond that. We do some special things on special days, but I'm talking about day-to-day living. Okay, you'd be surprised. We only have 3 minutes left, whether you know it or not. That really hurts me. That means you're going to have to come back again. But what about things like worship? Prayers 5 times a day. Is worship bizarre? Is it simple? Or, you know, is it done in secrecy and somebody there with a gun that you can't come in? Well, no, you know, I'm being...
yeah, I understand.
Yeah. John?
The prayers are done 5 times a day, and there was, in addition to the Quran, there is a set of books called Hadith, which have to do with the life of the Prophet. And in there is described how to perform the prayers. And so that we have a certain way to do it, which has been taught to us by the model of the Prophet, how he did his prayers. And it's a very relaxing time. It's a very time for meditation. It's more than just prayer. It's meditation, contemplation, and it's open to anyone to come in.
While visiting Egypt, I would hear this chant going all...
Azan.
Azan. What is that? The call to worship?
Yes, exactly.
Very good. Oh, but what about eating? Some things you just do not eat, forbidden by the religion?
Right. It's very simple, really. Pork or pork byproducts are what we say haram. It means forbidden. Okay. The meat of an animal which you may find dead is forbidden. Wine or any intoxicant, be it liquid or any form of a drug, it's abused, it's forbidden. But anything in general, the general principle is anything that is harmful is also forbidden. Anything that we may discover through scientific investigation to be harmful becomes a forbidden thing. But it's you know, simple dietary regulations, and they're really easy to follow. We do have a preference for slaughtering our own animals, so it's a certain way that we were taught to do this, and we like to comply with this and as often as possible.
Omar, thank you, and Anis and John, we're out of time. Obviously, I've got to have my brothers back again, and there's so much we have not dealt with. I know there are many people who might not understand yet what we're talking about. Personally, as a Christian, I'm not offended. I'm enlightened, informed. I'm excited about this new information. I thank my brothers for coming, and certainly wish you well. And assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
This has been another Living for the City. You have a fantastic day. Make it so. Go out and just do what has to be done to be happy, peaceful, and joyful.